Okay, we'll come back to these questions at a later time. Okay. There it goes. Okay. What are some characteristics of a mammal? The most common one is hair or what? Okay, hair or fur. Okay, and when it comes to that of the females, they can do what for their young? Not just give birth to them. Provide milk. Okay. What about as far as food gathering is concerned? Why, for instance, when you look at animals in the order Xanthara, first of all, you need to know who are animals in the order Xanthara. Armadillos 1 and anteaters 2. Okay? Now, when you look at animals like the anteater, what's true? What's true? Someone said it. What? They don't have teeth. So is that true for both animals in that order? No. So another aspect is a characteristic of mammals is they have teeth adapted to their specific diet. Okay? Do carnivorous mammals have molars? Yes, they do. Okay? Do humans have molars? Yes, of course so. Okay? Do bats have molars? No, but they would have their own type of, like you had pointed out, echolocation. Okay? And one of your vocab terms is something called baleen. Okay? That's a special type of tooth or teeth that would resemble bristles in a broom because whales do not chew. That you're too far ahead of the game before they can swallow their food. Okay? So what happens is when they take in the krill that's with the water, then they filter out the water from the krill, then swallow their prey item. Do what? No, you're getting feeding and respiration overlapping, which is not the case. Okay, so one of the things that's also true, do mammals have a jawbone? Yes, they do. Is it a specialized jawbone? Yes, it is. Because one of the things that happened is as nature developed, jaws between sharks, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, all of those, mammals have the ability to chew. Okay? You could say, well, so do alligators. Well, that's true, but their teeth are adapted for just holding on to their prey item. And technically, having teeth doesn't mean that you're really going to chew. Because if you know anything about that, whether it is a Komodo dragon or an alligator, that whole thing is going to go down whole. Okay? So, and if it doesn't go down in a whole, let's say, organism, it's going to break off chunks at its weakest links. Okay? And then it's going to, per se, take in its prey item. Because what happens is many reptiles, like snakes, have the ability to not just open their jaw wide like this. They don't have a single jawbone. Nature selected them to also be able to open up this way. Because what happens is, for anyone who's ever taken in a chunk of food or food item, let's say it's about this size, can you swallow this? Maybe. You can try, and maybe. Okay? One of the aspects to teach discipline in the Naval Academy. You eat at the same time, you lift the fork at the same time, you take a bite at the same time, You chew 3 times at the same time and put your utensil back down. So you hope that's ready to go down. And hopefully you wouldn't choke on that. Certain reptiles don't have to worry about that because they have what's called an epiglottis that sticks out in front of their pharynx. Your pharynx is your throat, okay? So if that sticks out before your throat, you're never going to choke on anything. No matter how big of a food item you put in there, it's not going to collapse. You might say, well, that doesn't sound possible. That's going to collapse just like a building in an earthquake, but that's not the case because we know that for a fact. You can grab your trachea and it will not collapse. Why is that? Yeah, there is a certain material in your trachea. Starts with a C. You've got cartilaginous rings in your trachea. So that means that ideally that should not collapse. And at least we hope not, because if it does, well then we're in big trouble. Okay, so moving on. What would endothermic or endothermy mean to you, even if there was not anything beneath all of this? How is it different than ectothermic? Sort of outside, but that's not quite accurate. One of them's cold-blooded, one of them's warm-blooded. So what do you suppose mammals are? Cold-blooded or warm-blooded?
I'll do warm.
They are certainly warm-blooded. So what that means then, your body temperature is not the same as their surroundings. You will produce heat internally as humans, just like mammals would do. Okay? But to do that, it's fairly tough to do. Okay? But we're designed to do that. Okay? Because what happens in order to have a very high metabolism, you have to have 2 things constantly for your body. Nutrients is one. Water is a type of nutrient, we would say. And you need oxygen. Okay? And sometimes we could say breathing is also tied into their cooling system. There are 2 mammals that do this. And you know what they are, you just don't know you know them. Dogs is one. Mm-hmm. And the other one is close to this. It's actually through their nose. Not cats. Pigs. They sweat through their nose. I don't know how, I don't know why, but nature selected them in order for their cooling system to work. They have to have water, sweat come through their nose. Don't know why, just the way the man upstairs designed them. And one of your random facts could be, when you look at all of the mammals in the animal kingdom, there's only one mammal that cannot look up into the sky. How did you know that? Well, that doesn't mean that it would be the pig. Just because the way their internal anatomy is set up with their backbone, they just don't have the ability to look up into the sky. Don't know why, it's just the way they're designed. Okay? So it's at the very bottom. It says strenuous activity can be maintained by animals that are warm-blooded. Okay? Your body temperature, even as humans, it is starting to rise and go up. How is it that this strenuous activity will be cooled back down again? Sweat is one. Has something to do with circulation.
The blood flow.
Okay, what about your blood flow? Right. If your veins start to dilate, okay, you've always heard about two concepts when it comes to dilation. Two most ways that you would talk about dilation. One is when you're looking at pupils, and two might be the veterinarian that is checking to see about where maybe the pregnancy check for cattle, or if maybe the cow is about to be delivered. Because in female mammals like cattle or pigs, there is a certain structure that gets dilated. What might that be? It's the bottom of the uterus, whether it's humans or whether it's mammals. Starts with a C. The cervix. If that cervix starts to dilate, that means it's just about time. The more the dilation or the wider that gets, it's closer to the offspring being born. Okay. So as you said earlier, okay, you have to have large amounts of oxygen, okay? Large amounts of oxygen. Please stop that, whoever's doing that. You got to be doing that intentionally. So we're just asking nicely, please stop. Okay, there's a couple things that we want to go over on the board to help point us in the right direction here. Okay, does everyone have this content that wants it? Okay. So, and I know there's some more questions that were up on the board yesterday. We had addressed some of them, but I saw that this might line up with what it is that we're talking about today. So, when you look at page 886, okay, what can you infer, which means interpret? What can you interpret from figure 8? So what is it showing on figure 8 for individuals who will be tuning in later? Brain. Okay. You see the brains of what type of animals there? An alligator on the far left, a goose in the middle, and then a horse to the far right. Okay. So what we would think that you can infer from this, intelligence. Where's this intelligence coming from? Why, or who do you think would be the most intelligent? Okay? So what is it about the horse brain, according to this figure, that you would say that makes horses higher intelligent? It's bigger, but you got to be a little more specific. You're not wrong. How is it that humans, and in this case horses, what do you think your cortex is for? Coordination, abstract thought, which includes thinking, okay? So notice with your prior two examples, alligators and the Canada goose or geese or however you want to say that. It's not that we say that geese are not intelligent, but it would not rank up there with the horse because of why. It's not that the horse's brain is bigger. How is it that the cortex is bigger in the horse? No, no. You were so close. Structurally. No. Someone can say, well, I said that already. How is it that the horse can fit more cortex into the same space? How is it increasing the surface area? Say that again. Yeah, there's folds, or if you don't call them bulges, same thing, wrinkles. So you're fitting the same amount of a cortex, or a larger amount of cortex in a smaller area. That's why you see those bulges in there. So, I don't know a lot about the first thing about horses. Some of you probably do. Okay? You could say the same thing about dogs. Okay? If you had a dog's brain there as opposed to that of the alligator and the goose, why would you infer that a dog is higher intelligent than the other two? Same reason. Okay? How many of you think I've got a really smart dog? It should be everybody. Okay? Because dogs are highly, highly intelligent. Should you spend time with them? Okay? If you choose not to, well then you're just not going to develop those thinking skills for that dog. Because I think you would agree that dogs are really, really highly, not just trainable, but they're very routine oriented. Okay? Because chances are, how many of you get home approximately the same time, and if you're the first one to get home, you probably let the dog out so it can do its business. It's used to doing that. It can train itself to do that. Same thing in the morning, you know. Luckily, us as humans, we can get up and use the bathroom whenever we want. Typically, dogs, they're just conditioned to hold that in. Now, we're not talking 3, 4, or 5 days, because obviously us as humans, we can't do that either. Okay, so intelligence is certainly a characteristic of mammals. Not just the intelligence, but the ability to learn. Okay? Then, we're just going to talk about it. Okay? So, then, on page 836, what is that on page 836? Okay? It's a frog. And then, what do you see on page 885? Okay? We tried this once before, but we epically failed. I don't know why. You can start pointing fingers at one another, and you probably be right with whoever it is that you're pointing at. Okay? But as far as the size of the heart, in proportion, a frog's heart would probably be the same size as a human's, but structurally, what is the difference between the frog and a mammalian heart?
They're cold-blooded.
You put those two terms together. 4 chambers does mean a double loop, but it's the number of chambers. Okay? How many chambers does a frog have?
1, 2, 4.
How many chambers does a frog have?
6.
How many chambers does a frog have? 3 chambers. Okay? Because, and you might be wondering, why are we talking about things like this? Well, some of, you could say, your pals or your friends that are juniors and seniors are doing what right away tomorrow morning? They're taking the ACT test. Okay? Shoot, I erased that. What page is the frogs on?
336.
Oh, I got it. It's marked here. Okay? So what you see, okay, at the very bottom of that heart, okay, so you see this structure for the frog. Okay? We'll put these side by side. This is what we tried a few days ago. Okay? Then when we look at this one, so here is a frog heart, of course. This is a mammalian heart. And to answer that, where do you find amphibians? You're right. Why? Say that again. Okay, they've got thin skin because oxygen can diffuse across that thin skin. So what you see in that diagram is you have blood coming from the rest of the body. Okay, it's coming into this back side. Okay, then as you follow that pattern, okay, you see it goes to the rest of the body after it leaves that bottom chamber. You have a left atrium, a right atrium, and then just one ventricle. Okay? So it just swirls in there, and there's really no rhyme or reason why blood would end up on this side as opposed to this side. I suppose the pressure has something to do with it. But then this just exits and goes to the left side of the body. This will exit and go to the right side of the body. That's what we mean by a three-chambered heart. Mammals and humans, it does not work that way. When blood comes back to the heart, we have this, which is a right atrium. You could say, wait a minute, this is the left side. Yeah, I understand that. But you're also looking at a mirror image. So then that makes this the left atrium. This is the, it's not quite right. We'll just finish this diagram. We're running short on time here. This is the right ventricle, and then this is the left ventricle. So I want you to think about, with all that you know about human anatomy, why is this chamber so much larger than that one? Where do you think blood goes when it leaves the left ventricle? Say that again. The entire body, whether it's up to your brain or down to your feet. Where do you suppose blood is going when it leaves the right ventricle? To the lungs only. So the workload would determine why those chambers are the size they are. All right, we'll catch up to you next time. Yep.